You're listening to the Live Free podcast. I'm your host, Christine, author, speaker, mentor, and guide. I'm here today to discuss living life after adversity, to discuss living life fully once again, a life of hope, peace, and resiliency, a life fully embodied. I utilize the lessons that I learned going through not one, but two primary cancers. I'm here today to guide you to your joy, turn your pain into power, and lead you back to yourself. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Live Free podcast. Today, you have just me on the podcast, and I want to talk about when life gets good again and how to allow joy after pain. So, a warm welcome to you. I know often we do interviews, but today I wanted to talk a little bit about some big changes in my life and how those have affected me and the kind of journey that has gone, the ups and downs that I've gone through as a survivor. And so perhaps you are going through the same things. Perhaps there's some way that my journey can help you in your life to allow more joy in after your diagnosis, experience, life change, or shift. So what that big change is that I am excited to announce on the podcast that I am 5 months pregnant, which is just the most spectacular thing in the world. Given that if you follow the podcast, you know that I am a cancer survivor, that I suffered a cancer of the hormones, or hormones were involved. And so I was told upon diagnosis that there's a very good chance that I won't be able to have a baby. I did go through IVF despite the recommendation to get started on chemotherapy right away because I was hell-bent on trying anyway to be able to have a baby. And for a long, long time, 5 years, in fact, I felt like there was a chance that I might not be able to. And so it's really, really, really wonderful and exciting to announce that. And so that's a lot of what we're going to talk about today is how life can feel good again after everything that we've been through. Because, for many of us, that's a long laundry list. And perhaps we're feeling a bit jaded about life. There might be a few emotions that are keeping us from our joy. And I just want to talk about how we can shift that. I also want to mention that there will be a shift with the Live Free podcast. And what that is that we have been doing 2 episodes a month for the last 4 years. So congratulations there. To us and to you, the listeners, for following faithfully. I'm going to be moving that to once a month for now, and we will see how it feels for the listeners. I'd love your feedback, in fact, if that feels like enough for you or if you feel like you'd like more. I'm doing the shift because number one, it's summer when I'm recording this, as well as afterwards in the early fall, I will have my little babe, God willing. And so hopefully I will have an opportunity for a little bit of a slowdown, as well as it will just give me an opportunity to find even better guests, even more powerful conversations. And I think that in itself will be a gift. So give me your feedback. Let me know if that feels good to you or if you feel like, no, like keep the 2. I'm happy to do that too if there is a demand for it, okay? All right, so back to the subject matter. So getting through cancer, it shaped my ability to feel joy or trust in life. And so what I mean to say is that although I have been very positive through the whole journey, if you follow, I often see the bright side of things. It's still a little bit of a feeling of like, hey, the shoe dropped. It dropped pretty hard, and it dropped many times. And then, post cancer, there was a drop in finances. There was a drop in the quality of my marriage. There was a drop in the way that my body looked for a very long time and the way that I felt in public spaces. And so there was a lot of drops, and the emotional complexity of feeling like I'll never be pregnant, like I won't have this life, and in a lot of ways accepting it and understanding that cancer is just one of those things that took a lot from me, and that although this has been my dream my whole life to be a mother, that there's a very good chance that I won't have that, and that's okay. And we'll find a way to find joy despite. And I had all these plans on how we would find that joy despite. And as a last ditch effort, I decided to use one of my two embryos, and I didn't know if either would take. And I was very scared, and if anything, shockingly, a little bit resistant. And I think that that was just because I had kind of convinced myself that, cool auntie was enough for me. And I didn't know, I just didn't want to be hurt again, I guess. And so there was a lot of resistance when it came time to do the embryo transfer. And lo and behold, the first one worked. So I really noticed that I was holding myself back from my joy. And I was really fearing any sort of joy that might come out of pregnancy, that might come out of children, that I was somewhat in a place where it was kind of like, this is my lot in life, and I'm accepting of that, but I'm not really expecting anything extraordinary. I'm not really expecting to have my dreams fully realized. And I think some of my subconscious beliefs may have been, if I let myself feel joy, then the other shoe will drop. And so if you're shaking your head right now, maybe you're wondering to yourself, if you let yourself feel joy, are you fearful that the other shoe will drop? I may have also been feeling like, it's safer to stay numb or neutral rather than risk being hurt again. And so where in your life do you potentially feel like it's safer to stay numb or neutral, and rather than risk being hurt again, instead you just don't hope for much? That is not an irregular feeling. It's painful, but yet normal. Trauma trains our nervous system to stay in protection mode, to stay in a place where, we're unhappy. We maybe don't have the things that we want. I mean, in my case, I was happy, but, not necessarily in joy. And life just kind of seemed like the last 5 years were as much joy as I could feel, but not as much joy as I wanted. And so the trauma, our nervous system starts to learn, hey, this is just my new normal. And the nervous system really likes normal. The nervous system really likes what's standard, what's regular. And although it may have felt really unsafe at first when you were going through your diagnosis or your setback or your life experience that has caused you to listen to this podcast, at that point, it felt really unsafe. After a period of time, our nervous system learns that it is more safe to be in unhappiness or in this kind of half-hearted joy than it is to venture for something outside of what's now normal. And so I just want to offer you some compassion here that yes, it is normal, but it does not need to be permanent. We can endeavor for joy again. That can be something that we decide on, that we want. It's something that we have to choose for ourselves. And it's important to note that it will be really, really scary. That's something that sounds so crazy. Perhaps for a fact that you do not want to be unhappy. And you know for a fact that you do not want to be poor. And you know for a fact that you do not want to be sick. But do you know what you do want? Do you know that you want to endeavor for a child? Do you know that you want to start that business? And if those are things that you want, are you prepared to take the leap of faith? Many of us stay in unhappiness because it is simpler and more normal and therefore safer to do so. So we spend a lot of time in our lives chasing happiness. I want to have money, travel, be happy, be in love, find my spouse, etc. And so we're chasing happiness, but we're not necessarily receiving joy. And that razor's edge difference is that sometimes chasing happiness becomes the normal, but never actually allowing yourself to receive the joy, to get to the point where you are happy, to get to the point where you are receiving the things that you think you are wanting, because there is a block. There is a subconscious block telling you that if you receive the things that you want, if you even have the clarity on that the other shoe will drop. And so the receiving part doesn't happen. We think we're chasing our happiness, but the receiving part just quite simply doesn't happen. So joy is a state of openness, not of perfection. So in our receiving joy can be, maybe you didn't get the promotion. So that's the perfection. So I want the promotion at this company. I want to make this much money and I want my boss to feel this way about me. That's perfection. So that's a specific plan. Joy is a state of openness. So I'm open to joy and I'm willing to receive it now. So maybe you don't have the promotion, but you are willing to be in joy about the sunshine that you feel today, the beauty that you witness, the ice cream that you had in the afternoon, which, by the way, I'm craving every single day. So I've switched to frozen yogurt because it's much lower in sugar. But, oh man, I had some frozen yogurt right before I started recording this, and now I'm drinking coffee. Decaf. But I digress. So we can be in joy now. And although we are chasing the happiness we think we want, or we don't even know what we're chasing, we're just running away from the things we don't want. Receiving joy is a state of openness, and it is fearful to receive joy. It's scary. For some people, the pain and the trauma that they have endured is so deep that the simpleness of enjoying a sunshiny day while eating an ice cream cone doesn't feel right. It feels scary. It feels like, I don't deserve this. Or, if I let my guard down, the other shoe will drop. Or if I feel joy in this moment, then I will get hurt again. So I'd rather stay numb. It's amazing how our mind tricks us into thinking that we have to stay unhappy. We have to stay away from joy, even though we cognitively, in our minds, believe that that's what we want. We think we are endeavoring to do so. But if you really broke it down, if you took a journal and you wrote down what you want in life, you might be surprised. You may not actually know specifically what you want. And if you do know specifically what you want, do you know why? And ultimately, the why is because we want to feel joy. And yet, so often, when we get it, we run from it. Because all of us have a story, and some of them are pretty darn bad. And so I want to give you a few kind of tips and tricks that would be helpful in inviting and identifying where we would like joy in our life and how to do so. So let's just take a minute before we begin that, and then I'll have a sip of coffee. And let's think about, where might you be resisting the good things in your life? And a clue may be something that you have wanted for a really long time, and it just doesn't seem to come to fruition, no matter what. Is there a possibility in that desire that you have that you are resisting the joy because you are fearful that you will get hurt again in some way, whether that be directly related to the thing that you want or whether or not you are still deeply entrenched and tied to your trauma? So take a minute and think about that. All right, so here's a couple gentle, practical tools that may begin to bring the things that you are wanting in life, or even help you get some clarity on what it is that you do want. And that is by accessing joy first. That is by accessing things that we want in life, the emotions that we are desiring first. And usually that's some form of joy. So first off, it is about having awareness. So notice when moments of joy arise and see if you have an instinct to shut them down. So take an opportunity today, tomorrow, at an event that you have coming up, and notice when you start to have fun, what your reaction is. Is it to fully open to this experience? Is it to settle into the joy and fun of the experience you are having? Or is it instead to kind of pull back and think practically and, maybe stifle that emotion a little bit, or even go as far as to shut your heart down? Another one that can be really powerful is learning to train your nervous system for micro moments of joy. So it can be starting with small, safe joys. So like I said about the sunlight, the ice cream, music playing, the ability to take a deep breath, whatever it is. If you can take an opportunity to just enjoy a micro moment of joy intentionally, you can begin to train your nervous system that this is something you accept. You accept joy in your life. This is something that you want. And another great awareness around it is as you do that little micro moment of joy, notice the awareness. Do you have an instinct to shut it down? And if you do, you could even say out loud, I refuse to shut this down. I'm going to enjoy this sunset, this music, this deep breath, the ice cream, the sunlight that's on my face, etc. Another is to give yourself permission. It sounds silly, but it's powerful. To simply write down and affirm, it's safe for me to feel good. Joy doesn't erase what I've been through. It instead honors it. And this sounds really prevalent to me when there is a loss of something, when you're in grief. Often people in grief feel bad when they have a moment of joy, when they giggle or have a lighthearted moment. They think to themselves, what am I doing here? I can't have this joy. This person is no longer with me. This experience that was once really powerful to me is no longer with me. And so therefore I should be grieving. And so in those moments, I invite you to remember that joy does not erase what you've been through. It does not erase that person's memory to you. It instead honors it. Because, I mean, truly, if you think about it, especially when it's grieving a person, would that person want you to be in deep grief and pain? Quite simply, I think the answer across the board is no. They would want you to have moments of joy. And so it does not erase the experience. We have a complex way of acting as human beings. We can express joy and grief simultaneously at the same time. The difference is the guilt. Okay? So that's just a little side note about grief that I think can be really powerful. So when it comes to this permission that you're giving yourself, whether it is, the grief of a loved one or whether it is, the grief of your own diagnosis, it's reminding yourself that it is safe to feel good. Just two more here. Inviting support. Surround yourself with people who can hold your joy, not just your pain. And this is particularly evident with survivors of health crisis. We often surround ourselves with other survivors of health crisis, which can be extremely cathartic. It can be fantastic for healing. However, the caveat here is that often the types of supports that we find are rumination based. And so meaning they can only guide you for a period of time unless that person is also willing to enjoy joy and begin to heal and let go from their experience. Because long-term rumination, long-term belief that this is my lot in life, that this is bad, that I'm never going to find any happiness again, and then talking about it amongst each other, although it has its place, it does, and like it's a beautiful thing to have, especially when you're feeling in this really lost moment in life. It does need to eventually subside. Now, that does not mean that you cannot have friendships with other survivors. It means that the friendships that you have with other survivors best be in yours and theirs best interest for growth. And if not, then perhaps that survivor is not the person for you anymore if you are choosing to move into joy and away from rumination. Finally, my final tip is trust building. Joy and safety grow with repetition. So you have to keep showing up for it. You have to keep noticing those moments when joy arises and you have the instinct to shut it down and then making the intention not to. You have to keep intentionally enjoying safe little joys, sunlight, music, deep breaths. You have to give yourself permission. Sometimes multiple times. Sometimes it needs to be an affirmation on your mirror that it is safe to feel good. That joy doesn't erase what you've been through. It instead honors it. And then finally, creating a support group of people who lift you up and can hold you in your joy and who are not interested in stifling you down so that you can continue to ruminate in your pain. It takes time, patience, and eventually you can bring this joy into your life. This showed up for me through most of my pregnancy and still does, to be honest, at times. Whereas in the first three months, it was kind of like I didn't really want to tell anyone. And if I did, it was kind of like don't celebrate yet. We don't know. Let's wait till 3 months, and even now I noticed in the podcast, I said, I'll be with my little babe, God willing. And it's the same reason that I said that in the first 3 months of preparing myself to some degree for the worst while still hoping for the best. And that is a human response. And so I want to honor the fact that you may be feeling this same response within yourself, but it is up to us, it's up to me, it is up to you to trust again in the ability to have joy in our lives. And it does take time, and some of the tips and tricks that I've given you and that I work on myself can be really healing. I think back to, a 22-year-old woman and how excited they are about life and how they believe such good things are in their future, for example. Not all of them, but some of them. And often, a 40-some-year-old will talk to them and they'll have kind of a little bit of like shut up, little girl, because they feel jaded. They feel like, well, you wait, life's going to beat you down, And sometimes they even say that, which is awful, but it does happen. And so that feeling of entitlement of, I'm older than you, and so therefore I know that life is shit, is not really a self-fulfilling way to live now, is it? And so I'm inviting you to have the carefree enjoyment and allowance of joy in your own life that, say, a young person that is just beginning their adult life has. And if you are a young person listening, then I would recommend to you, keep that childlike joy, or find it again that you might have had when you were even younger than you are now, and bring that back in. Because being realistic is not being realistic. Being realistic is being negative. And being negative is just a really crappy way to live. And so let's invite joy. Let's be brave enough through our experiences and our stories to, instead of feeling like, I'll be happy when, I invite you to be happy now and trust and have wonderment for your future in front of you, rather than this belief that, it's crappy now and it'll be crappy later. And if you believe in the woo-woo like I do, then that's not attracting very good things to you now, is it? So I invite you to reflect on this episode, journal, reach out and share your stories with me. You're always more than welcome to do so. The best place to connect with me is on Instagram. I love hearing your stories about, your fears and what's going on with you. So always connect, and feel free to follow and subscribe for the future episodes that will be a little less often, but even more powerful and even more purposeful. And again, let me know if you would prefer the 2 a month. I can absolutely make that happen for you if that is the demand. But at this current time, I'm going to spend a little time with my babe. Okay? So all my love to you. And thank you for listening. And we'll chat soon. Thank you so much for listening. If you loved this last episode, then consider rating the podcast. Those few seconds that it takes makes a huge difference. Also, if you are interested in mentorship, transformational programs, or reading the book Unbroken, Rising Above, Thriving Within, then take a look at the show notes for all the resources and links. Always remember, You can overcome any obstacle. Let's do this together.